Welcome to Community Connections with Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County. I'm just one of your hosts, Sean Boyle, and with me is...
Ashley Mock.
You see that? I finger pointed this time. Welcome to the half-hour radio program. It's every Sunday at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Flame, but also because of a wonderful partnership we have with WLX-TV, St. Lucie Public Schools. We are also a monthly television program.
And this is our first television program of the new year.
2020.
2020.
Our vision is set. There's some stuff we can work off that name, 2020. But anyway, if you're a radio listener, be sure that if you always wondered what we look like, with a word of caution, check out your local cable provider for WLX-TV. Or you can go to YouTube, look up WLX-TV. You can see all the wonderful offerings that the St. Lucie Public Schools offer. But click on Community Connections, and you can see what our faces look like.
And I have been posting all the old shows onto our website as well. So you can go back and take a look at past shows there.
I cannot urge this enough with a word of caution. Check it out. But real quick, what we do at the Children's Services Council, besides host a weekly radio program and monthly television program, we do 5 things for our community. And those 5 things are: 1, make sure every baby's a healthy baby. 2, stop child abuse before it happens. 3, keep kids off the streets. 4, keep them in school. And 5, keep them off drugs, alcohol, and other risky behaviors by offering programs and resources for all families in our community. And we utilize this time together
to count
to 5. But also to share a resource so that you can become that community champion, whether it be in your neighborhood, your workplace, your congregation, so that you can connect people to the resources that exist to make our community even better.
And we have a really good resource to share today.
We do.
Which I feel like we do typically talk about at the beginning of the year, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Don't overhype our guests.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Please, I don't need that pressure.
So outside of the radio show and this television show, there's a couple different ways that you can learn more about our programs. One of them is on our website, which is cscslc.org. We have a list of all of the programs that we work with in the community, along with the description and contact information. So if there is something specific that you're looking for, you can identify kind of what each program does and if that's the right place for you. If you have questions outside of those programs, if you're not finding something that you're looking for, or if you're not quite sure if the program you think is going to work for you is a good fit for your family, please just call us at the office. 408-1100. You can ask for Sean or I. If we are not available, really anyone in the office can help connect you to the right place. And then I don't think that we've talked about this lately on the radio show, but 211 is also a phenomenal resource to connect you to anything that you are looking for in the community.
You know, it's 2020.
It is.
And we're going to change this radio show and TV show. We're going to be all sports talk moving forward. Just kidding. But it's funny, in 2020, you know, and we talked about this a little bit in the office. You talked about all the ways they can get a hold of us, but it seems like more and more, less people use their phones to actually call people,
yes.
Which is kind of weird, right? But I say all that to say we have a Facebook presence. Look up Children's Services Council, St. Lucie County. A lot of times people will outreach to us through Facebook, and that's a perfectly fine method as well. I know sometimes the hardest thing to do is to make that first ask, and sometimes it's a little bit easier to type on a computer or a phone and send that message. And trust me, we check our Facebook messages. We get back usually, I think, on average within 5-10 minutes.
Yes.
Even when it's late at night, we are up as well. And we will respond.
That is true. And then too, just one, you know, we always try to identify maybe a resource that we haven't had on the show for a while, but is super helpful. I mentioned 211, but you know, we know that the holidays are really stressful for families, and that sometimes getting through them is all you can do. And then when you come out on the other side, you're like, man, we really probably could use some help. And Supporting Families in Crisis is a great program that we work with that is run by Hibiscus Children's Center. I think Will and Jackie and Stephanie are probably some of the most referred people in the community.
Easily.
But they have a great program that works with families who are going through a crisis, who maybe have just one small thing that they can't overcome. But what I love about that program is that the crisis is identified by the family. So it might not be a crisis for your family, but it is for mine, and that's what I need help with right now, and that's what Supporting Families in Crisis is.
I kind of feel like you were just describing my holiday there for a minute. So I appreciate that.
Well, welcome.
I'm going to step off camera and I'm going to call Hibiscus right now. Supporting Families in Crisis.
Good plan. But all that information is available on our website, so you can find all their contact info there.
So a couple things before we get to our guest who's waiting very patiently.
He is.
and an emphasis on the word very patiently. It is 2020, so it's not often that we end a decade that ends in a zero, or we start a decade that ends in a zero, but good chance if it is, that means it's census time.
It is
so
correct.
Every 10 years, the federal government does a census, which is simply a count of everybody that's in our country. And they are going to be, 2020 is the census upcoming. They're going to be sending out mailers to encourage everybody to complete the census online. It is going to be done electronically this year. There is no paper thing that you're going to fill out. They're going to send you a reminder, and we are urging everybody to complete the census information. Mostly, one, because it's confidential. None of that information will be shared. We just saw a presentation about that, and they made absolutely sure that just to, to instill confidence in everybody that your information is not going to be shared except with the census. But also it's so important because every person that's counted is $1,600 for your community. So on the flip side, all those people that aren't counted cost our community $1,600. And that's $1,600 that could account for roads and schools and everything that makes a community great. I did just recently hear that, we obviously are focused on children. I did hear that the children in St. Lucie County at the last census were underrepresented by nearly 10%.
Wow.
So think about that. There are about 60,000 children. If they were undercounted by that's 6,000 children, and it costs $1,600.
I'm not good at math, but
that's a lot of money. And that's a lot of resources. And quite frankly, we need to make sure that St. Lucie County is well represented, both at the federal level, but obviously that has implications in the state. So we strongly urge everybody to, when the census card comes out, and I believe they start getting mailed in January.
I believe the end of January.
And here's how it's going to work. They're going to send you 2 to 3 mailers. If you don't complete the census, they're going to come knocking on your door and saying, hey, complete the census. So I've been using it as motivation. I'm going to complete it because I don't want that random knock at my door saying you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Right. I had the opportunity last week to be in Tallahassee for a leadership FPRA session, and one of the things they actually talked about the census quite a bit up there because it is going to be very impactful for our state government as well. They are under the assumption right now that we will get 2 to 3 additional seats in the federal government because of how much our population has grown, and so there's a lot of impact potential that the census has for us this year.
And that all, the bottom line, it all, in some shape or form, all comes down to money for your community. Yep. And we want to make sure that St. Lucie gets its fair share.
Exactly.
So definitely fill out the census when it comes. Tell your friends, neighbors, coworkers, congregation members, census, census, census. The other thing that the first of the year always brings is taxes. So this is a good news show, folks. So taxes. So last week on the radio program, we had Jessica Parrish from the United Way on to co-host.
Who filled in for me.
Because you were under the weather, yes, on the radio program. But she talked about the VITA program, where the United Way partners with multiple accountants, for lack of a better word, all across the county and community to do your taxes for free.
If you qualify.
If you qualify. And the qualification, and give or take a couple thousand, it's $54,000 or less for your household. You can get your taxes done for free. Go to the United Way of St. Lucie County's website. She told me they have 6 different locations at different times. You don't necessarily have to set an appointment. You just show up, bring all your information, and they will complete your taxes. And they do that because a lot of people who don't do their taxes and or they don't have a professional do it, a lot of times they can get money back, but they don't recognize it. And that alone costs our community money as well. So we want to make sure that everybody's getting their fair share. So again, I believe the threshold is if your household makes $54,000, maybe $56,000 or less, you can get your taxes done for free through the United Way VITA program. Go to the United Way's website, make sure you put in St. Lucie County, and check out all that information.
Yep, very good.
So he's been waiting patiently.
He has. I feel like
he's only checked his watch like 3 times, which is pretty good.
No, so January brings about a lot of things, and there's new stuff that happens for everybody in January. But one of the new things that always gets talked about in January is registration for lots of different things. But in our world, we are talking about VPK registration for the state's voluntary pre-kindergarten program. So we thought it best to bring on the expert of VPK.
If it were up to him, I think he'd be on every show. And we're like, Tony, just a couple of shows.
Just one or 2.
Ease you into your own show.
1 or 2 is fine. But we did bring you on the first show of the year, so.
I know. I'm feel so privileged
I
and
know.
honored.
We do have with us today Tony Loop, the CEO for the Early Learning Coalition of St. Lucie County. And I know we want to talk about VPK, and you guys have a ton of events coming up because I peeked at your calendar. But kind of give everybody, I think some people may be familiar with what Early Learning Coalition does or when they need to go to Early Learning Coalition, but kind of give us an overview of what you guys really do in our community.
Yeah, sure. So we have two main programs. First is the School Readiness Program, which serves families that are income eligible. So they have to be working and or going to school, and they have to qualify based on their income. Generally up to 150% of the federal poverty levels, but we actually have a program and special funding from Children's Services Council that's being matched to go up to 200%. So we don't ever want a family to think, oh, I make too much money, unless they really know it. If they're making $1 million, okay, but if they're unsure, go ahead and go online and fill out the application, and the system will do a pre-certification as you're going through it. So it'll tell you if you're over the threshold. So if you are, then you'll know. But if you're unsure, it definitely pays. So,
And all that information is available on your website.
correct.
I wanted to ask you what the website address is, but even for those families that maybe they fill it out and they're like, oh, we don't qualify for the subsidy, you do have a lot of resources for families that are trying to identify what's the best child care center for their child to go to.
Yes, definitely. So that's what we call our Child Care Resource and Referral, CCR&R is what the acronym
We
for
like
it.
acronyms.
So, but with that, it doesn't matter if you qualify for a program or not. This is totally free to the entire community, any caregiver. So we can customize a list of child care centers based off of zip code. So if you want something close to where you live or close to where you work, we can customize that for you. And then we also have a checklist that we can give the parents so that they know what to look for, because not every center may be right for every child. And just because a center may have new flashy technology, that just might not be right, for your child. So we have a lot. We can also, with families, or not families, but individuals that may be interested in opening a child care center, we can help give them information as well and guide them through the process. So,
that's interesting.
yeah.
I have to say, I have a girlfriend who has a young infant, and she has been lucky enough to have a family member at home with her for the first year, but now she's looking for a child care center to put her into. And I think that not enough people know about the child care resource and referral option because they assume that they don't qualify for school readiness. Right. But when I told her, no, go call them, tell them where you want to look, if it's close to work or close to home, they'll give you a rundown of every possible option for you. And it's extremely detailed, hours of operation, what time you can drop off, what meals are fed if they do provide meals. It's just really helpful rather than having to go around and make all those phone calls yourself, which
definitely.
is what you'd have to do otherwise.
Yep. And then we also share DCF's website information so that, and we tell parents how to go and look to see if a child care center has maybe had some violations, or what their history is with the DCF inspections that are done over a 2-year period.
So real quick, the website is elcslc.org, which quite frankly was the question that I asked. I didn't get the answer.
Our viewers got to
Our
see
viewers
that.
can see it on the screen. I wrote it down because I can see it, elcslc.org. And I'm joking with Tony. Tony and I have known each other for a long time.
You asked too many questions.
So I did. It was a loaded question.
That's right.
So obviously we are being broadcast television-wise on the education channel. So I'm going to guess that most of the viewers are very familiar with why childcare is so important. But for maybe our radio listeners, or maybe that person that just happened to jump on and still hasn't turned the channel, obviously providing childcare is so important to the family because, while you're at work, who's going to take care of your child? You want it to be a safe and secure environment. But childcare has great rewards, for lack of a better word, for the education development of a child.
Yeah, exactly. So the child's brain develops so rapidly in the first 5 years that it's important that a child is in in an environment that is stimulating to them and helps their brain grow. And the exposure to words and interaction with other children, we actually had our children at a family child care home, and we contract with them as well. So it's not just a traditional child care center. You can have a registered or licensed family child care home we contract with as well. But depending on the age, you may want your child to be in that home type situation for the first couple of years. But really, once they hit age 2, you want to develop that social emotional piece with them. And that's where the interaction with other children really comes into play.
I'm glad you brought that up, because so much of the research that we're seeing now about early education is that there's a big gap between kids who have had that opportunity and kids who haven't once they get to kindergarten.
Yes.
And there's a lot of catching up that has to happen for some of the kids who don't come in with the social and emotional skills that they might need.
Right.
And that really, we've seen, is starting to detract from the entire classroom experience
Yes.
at
Yes.
that level. So I love too about Early Learning Coalition that you guys have professionals that work with the child care centers to make sure that they are meeting standards and that they have everything that they need to provide a little bit more professional development if that's what's necessary to make sure that their center is successful.
Yeah, definitely. That's another partnership between Tykes and Teens and funding with Children's Services Council around infant mental health and trauma-informed care. And we have professionals through Tykes and Teens that actually work with designated centers on a regular basis, but then they'll go out to any of our centers if we have a situation that warrants it. And it is, I would say, social emotional skills are the number one thing that a child needs entering into kindergarten. I know, there's a lot about literacy, which is huge too. I would call that maybe the second most important. But there's obviously that education piece, and parents may think that they want their child to know all of their numbers and to be able to add, subtract, do some things like that before they get into kindergarten. But the social emotional piece in the birth through 5 age is really where it's needed for them to be able to learn the other skills, and then the exposure to words is the other piece.
So that's a perfect segue, because the reason why we wanted you on now is because, and as you mentioned, obviously they're going to build educational blocks when they're in childcare, but it's also that experience of being in a classroom setting. Because if the first time they go in kindergarten is the first time they're in a classroom, that can be a shock to a child. Because what do you mean I have to sit here? What do you mean I have to pay attention? So fortunately in our state, there's actually free to everybody, regardless of income, just really a matter of signing up, a voluntary pre-K program.
Yep.
So can you explain to our viewers and listeners what that is?
Sure, definitely. So VPK, or the Voluntary Pre-Kindergarten Program, again, another acronym, is a completely free program. And there's a couple of different options with the program as far as a school year program or a summer program. The school year program is 540 hours and generally follows the school district calendar and starts in August, ends in May or June, whenever the school district is over for the school year. And it's a 3-hour program. So those 3 hours are completely free. Parents should not have to pay a penny. If they decide to keep their child for before or after care at a child care center, then they would have to pay that cost. But the program itself is absolutely free. And then if the school year kind of passes the parent by and they didn't realize that they could sign up, there are summer programs as well. That's a 300-hour program, and those generally run about 6 hours a day. So there's still that option. And then we also have or offer what we call VPK SIS. And I can never remember what SIS stands for, so I have to look at my notes. It's Specialized Instructional Services. And what that is for a 4-year-old that maybe the parents feel a traditional classroom setting is not appropriate for them because they need, whether it's occupational therapy or some type of vocational therapy, those need a specialist. And we are contracted, or the state is contracted with individuals that can offer those types of services. We do have a couple in our area in St. Lucie County, and then there's also some in Martin and Indian River as well. So we've only had one child ever take advantage of that in the last 5 years. But
that's a great opportunity.
It's out there, and
Yeah.
it's roughly $2,500 to be used towards those therapies
Wow.
for the child. So, and again, there's no qualification income-wise for that.
And that's important because I know early steps where a lot of families can get free therapies, occupational speech, physical, whatever they may be, they cut off at 36 months. So this is great news for a lot of those families.
Yeah, it's
very
kind of
good.
that best kept secret that we
Yeah.
keep trying to get out there, but it just,
So anyone who has a 4-year-old, and there are some date restrictions on
Correct,
that, but
yes.
if they turn 4 before September 1st,
on or before September 1st.
September 1st, they can sign up for VPK now.
Correct. Yep. So January 1, we flipped the switch so that they can start registering now for this coming school year. And so as long as they're 4 on or before September 1st, they qualify based on their age. And that's really the only qualification, that and that they're a resident of St. Lucie County. But if they're listening to this program and they're a resident of Indian River or Martin or Okeechobee, they would just need to go to that coalition to sign up for.
Do the same.
Yep.
So for on or before September 1st, so the clock is ticking now, right?
Correct. Yep.
And it's free, and there's no income qualifications. The only thing you have to prove is that your child is
4.
4 on or before September 1st.
Correct.
So do they go to your website to fill out the registration?
Yes, they can. So the easy there, it will automatically take you to, you click a link and it'll take you to the state website to fill out the information, and it's secure. But initially, it's a lot easier to go to our website and then just click on Family Portal or VPK, and there will be a link there that you'll see that you can go and sign up for VPK, and there's another link to sign up for the school readiness program as well.
It's a very simple process.
Yep.
And
Very
extremely.
for our radio listeners, just a reminder, the website is elcslc.org. Again, elcslc.org. I realized I said it kind of fast, so I repeated it. So about what percentage would you say, and I don't know if you know exactly, but what percentage of 4-year-olds actually enroll for the VPK program?
So we're hovering right around the state average, which is, it fluctuates year to year, but around like 78 to 80% of our 4-year-olds
That's pretty
are
good.
participating in the program. Yep.
So challenge accepted. So if this is what I was leading to. If any viewers and or radio listeners, when you go about your work week this week or your day or whatever it may be, when you see this, if you run across young parents with young children, remember, if they're 4 on or before September 1st, they need to take advantage of this. This is great, obviously, practice for what they're going to experience when they go to kindergarten, and particularly for those kids that maybe have been home the entire time. You know, this is a great exposure to that setting before it actually counts, if you will,
Right.
when they get into kindergarten. So I would strongly urge you, and the whole point of the show is to connect you to resources. Let's say you're watching the show and you're like, Sean, my kid's 15. Don't enroll them in the VPK program. They'll probably do really well, but don't enroll them.
I hope.
I hope, yeah. But if you're going to church or you're talking to a coworker and you know they have young kids, make sure that you tell them about the VPK program. Stands for Voluntary Pre-K. And if you get kind of fuzzy on the, I think you have to be this certain age. It's
By
4
someday.
on or before September 1st. Say, just look, you got young kids, go to elcslc.org, or you can call them at 595-6424.
Yep. Great. You're like a walking
I
billboard
know,
for me.
you see
I've called that number a few times.
A few times. So we have a few minutes left, but I know you guys have a ton of events coming up.
And I'm sorry, if you don't mind, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want to say one more
Wait a
thing about
minute. I do
VPK.
mind.
I'm taking over the show now. No, with the age for getting into the program, there is also a caveat for children that turn 4 between February 2nd and September 1st. That kind of to relate it, when they turn 5 on September 1st to enter kindergarten, some parents may feel that if you have a late August or a September 1 child, baby, that they're going to be really young in that grade and maybe too young for the parents' concern. So they do now have the ability. A few years ago, the state allowed for parents to hold their child back from VPK. So if they know, or they feel that they're going to hold their child back from kindergarten, they can hold them back from VPK so that they can start and not go to
With their
VPK.
peers,
Right,
then.
and not go to
That's great.
VPK
Have
and
a
then
whole
miss
year,
a year
yeah.
and then go to kindergarten.
That's
That's
awesome.
smart. That's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So-
So I do now want to
Okay.
talk about, you have a
I'll
couple
let
of
you.
events, but one that is really exciting because I feel like we have a lot of 5Ks in our area.
I thought you were going to say it's exciting because it has the word donuts in it.
Well, yes, there is that.
This
But you
run
guys,
walk thing.
you
Yeah,
guys
but
are
donuts.
doing a run for the donuts.
Yes.
So explain that.
So
Is this a Homer Simpson related thing?
It should be.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, Run for the Donuts is something that Sue Ellen Sanders, our community development manager, that she came up with. And I think it's the original first donut run in our county that I'm aware of. And it's a 2-mile course on Kaiser's campus out in Tradition. And there's going to be 4 stops, so you do have to
Eat a
donut?
donut?
Yeah.
A whole donut?
A whole donut.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm
So-
in. 4 donuts?
And if you eat a donut, then you will be given, there'll be time deducted from your overall time. So you could come in, depending on how fast you run,
Or
and then, or walk. That's
Yeah,
right,
I
Sean,
wanna talk
or
about
walk.
that,
And eat the donut. Please eat the donut carefully. We don't want people choking,
Yeah.
running and trying to eat at
But
the
you
same
can,
time.
so when I hear run and 2 miles doesn't seem like that long, but my knees started aching when I heard the run in 2 miles, but you can walk it.
You can walk.
You can walk. Yes,
So
definitely.
it is going to be a lot of fun. Registration is open now. That event is happening March 13th, you said, on the campus of Kaiser University
Yes.
out in Tradition, which is a great place to be, kind of wide open space out there, which
Yep.
is awesome.
Yep.
But families can register. Kids are invited.
Correct, yes.
Everybody can do it.
Everyone can do it.
I have an idea. Let's say I walk,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that you can eat 4 donuts and get time deducted. What if I eat like 12? Can I get more
No.
time deducted? And then I
Only one.
then I won't feel guilty
Right,
about
yeah.
walking. I'll have a really good time.
Only one.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sean ran a sub 3-minute mile.
So
Yeah.
information about that, I'm going to wrangle these cats, I swear. Information about the Run for the Donuts and VPK registration and school readiness is all available on your website at elcslc.org.
Yes. And the donuts are going to be supplied from Dixie Cream Donuts.
Oh, well,
So,
I'm in.
Everybody's
Yes.
going to be there. Everybody's going to be there.
everyone will come. For
And the
Dixie
donuts
Cream
don't count as calories if you're running or walking when you do it.
Yep.
So
And for a nonprofit, it's
Exactly.
all good.
and for those that don't want to eat them, they can keep them in a bag and then eat
There
them
you go.
afterwards.
Give them to me.
If they're not that concerned and they really want to run their fastest, then they don't want to eat
is
the
coffee
donuts.
going to be served too?
There will be coffee.
I am so in. I may run
You
it
need
twice.
milk for donuts.
I may run it
Sean's
twice.
kind of event. I like it.
All right, so we're winding down here. If you have a child 0 to 5, make sure you contact Early Learning Coalition, elcslc.org or 595-6424. And or if you have a child that's going to be on or before September 1st, make sure you take advantage of the free VPK program.
Yep.
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming on.
Tony.
Thank you.
A big thanks to WLX TV for our first show in 2020, and our radio listeners, thanks for tuning in. And remember, it's our children, our community, our future. We're all in this together. We'll see you next time.